Hi, this is Kris, Hannah, and Amy. This is Ever New, and it's about living out loud, forging lasting connections, and visiting with effervescent thinkers and dreamers. It's an uplifting hour, at least, that promises to leave everyone feeling better. So, who's up for some fun? Welcome. Let's get this party started.
I am.
Hi. Oh, I like that. Okay. Well, I'm supposedly supposed to be the MC of this thing, and I'm just learning the ropes. I'm pretty shy and just learning the ropes. But thanks to Roger Noriega, we've had like six tests up ahead of time. Hannah has been with me at least three of those times, maybe four. And she comes from a showbiz family, so she's just on top of this like nobody's business. Amy also is she's a teacher, but she's also an actor. And you appeared in Of Gods and Men. Is that correct? Okay.
Yep.
And I've known Amy for about probably close to 15 years. I think we met during the 1996, 9600, oh my God, that's longer than that.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
But I haven't seen her in a long time.
Yep.
So anyhow, let me tell you a little bit about what Ever New is going to be like. We have viewers, so I might as well start. Ever New is going to be composed of 3 segments, and they aren't necessarily 5 minutes or 6 minutes or 7 minutes long. They are just going to last for as long as there's interest and eyes on the page and people interacting. Okay. But one of them is going to be Joyride, because during these times of pandemics and political unrest and all this stuff, we need some uplifting, fun stuff going on. And I really want this to be an uplifting time. One of my segments will be called Joyride, and that's anybody who's tuning in or as a co-host, think of the things in your life that brought unexpected joy into your life that you can share. The one I did most recently that I shared was I was walking one day on a really, really cold day around the neighborhood, and I was coming upon this house that I call it the Mother Goose house, because there are at least 30 white geese in the yard. And usually they're way back toward the back of the place. But this day, I want to pull up a picture of these geese, if I can find them. There we go. This is the Mother Goose house. I was approaching from the east, and a USPS truck was approaching from the west. And I thought nothing of it until all of a sudden these geese had been way back by that house. And all of a sudden they came flapping and flying and honking and doing everything I could. It was like Christmas morning for the geese. And I thought, what is going on? Did they think that white truck is a mother goose or something? Of course I didn't. Geese are smarter than I am. The man got out of the USPS truck and threw food to them. And I was really cold, but at that moment I became so warm from head to toe. It was just such a heartwarming, unexpected delight. And I gave him a thumbs up and I said, "You just made my day." And he said, "It's so funny because a couple of weeks ago, during the holiday season, my nephew rode along with me, my 10-year-old nephew, and he didn't know anything about the goose house. And as we approached and the goose came, running up, he goes, 'Do you feed these ducks every time?'" So anyhow, the rest of my walk was just warm, and I think about it very, very often. It just makes me smile. So that's the kind of thing that I want to share, the unexpected treasures in your life that are just going to bring you a smile every time you think about it. The second one, because so many people have come to me as a result of my books about DeForest Kelley, I'm going to call a segment Delights. And that's for people who have read the books and have additional follow-up questions or comments or anything at all that they want to ask about D, or my friendship with him that I had for like some 30 years. And then there's going to be a segment called Ask Me Anything Within Reason. Because usually what happens is when you meet somebody, you find out, okay, we connected because of D, but we have so much else in common. I'm an animal lover. Hannah's an animal lover. I believe you are too, Amy. Mm-hmm. And so we connect over animals. We connect over Jack Benny. I didn't know Hannah was a Jack Benny fan, and there you have it. She's too young to be a Jack Benny fan, but she discovered him, and there we go. We have a third connection. So that's what I hope to do. I hope to really reach out and connect with the people who have been interested in anything I've done or anything that you two will be helping do in the future as you can join us, as you're free to do that. So let me see who's logging in. Somebody is coming in from NDME Media. I don't know who it is yet. If you will let me know who you are and where you're from and ask a question or a comment, that would be awesome. Does anybody else have anything else they want to share at this moment? Because I'll shut up for a minute if you do. Nope, you're okay? Okay. When we did the test the other day, the last one on Thursday, we brought up this book, Floating Around Hollywood, and I didn't have my cover for it. So I finally got my cover for it, and I'm going to pop it up here so people can see. And that's all of my books are pretty funny, but this is actually a book designed to be funny, Floating Around Hollywood and Other Totally True Tales of Triumph, because it's about my years as a floating secretary in Hollywood. And basically it's all the things I did that should have got me fired. Just being a Lucy Ricardo type, I'm flailing and failing and doing my best and this kind of stuff and all the funny stuff that happens. One of the incidents I can share that involved DeForest Kelley was they had been coming to my house for a while, and I asked them if they had ever had portraits of themselves done. Dee had been filmed hundreds of times, thousands of times, tens of thousands of times, but they hardly had any of Carolyn and Dee together. And I asked, why don't you do that? I said, we don't have any kids. We don't have anybody who would be interested in that. I said, are you kidding me? I said, a lot of people would be interested in that. And Carolyn said, well, let me think it over. And I knew a professional photographer who would do it for free. I mean, he would be happy to do it. He was the official photographer for the Shambhala Preserve, the Roar Foundation. And so she thought about it and she said, okay, we'll do it. And they came to my house, to my backyard, and Bill Dow came over to film them. And it was so funny because they got them all set up. They got the screen up behind them and the whole thing. And Bill Dow, first I got to tell you the first funniest thing that happened. Bill Dow arrived first, to set up. And we were talking and talking. Somehow we got on to the topic of Muhammad Ali. I think he had just been diagnosed with, what was it?
Parkinson's?
Parkinson's, yeah. And we were commiserating over that. And so we had like a 5 or 6 minute conversation about that. The door knocks. I opened up the door and Dee and Carolyn are standing there. And I was trying to introduce Bill to Dee. And I said, Bill, I'd like to introduce you to Muhammad Ali, who often is mistaken for DeForest Kelley.
What did they do?
They just laughed. They were stressed, One of the first jobs I got in Hollywood, I kept thinking, I'm going to forget this woman's name. I'm going to forget her name. I got to be careful to remember her name. I think her name was Amy, if you can believe it. And I walked up. Finally, I said, okay, well, let's do this. I walked in. I said, put my hand. I said, hi, I'm Amy. And I went, no, I'm Kris. You're Amy. That kind of stuff. You get all flustered and anything. So anyhow, Dee and Carolyn come in through the house and into the backyard where Bill has set up to take their pictures. And Bill apologizes. He says, I'm not used to taking pictures of people. I'm used to taking pictures of lions and tigers and cats and dogs. I'm a pet photographer and an animal photographer. And he had a bunch of these squeaky toys down in his little bag of tricks, So I pick up the squeaky toys and I say, not to worry. Dee, look here, Carolyn, look here. And they just lost it. Oh, I got some of the cutest photos of them losing it, doing that. And Dee, Carolyn starts meow, meow, And it was just
Is
a
that
delight.
where Doggy D and Kitty Carolyn came from?
That's where Doggy D and Kitty Carolyn came up.
Nice.
Yes.
Do you have any of those pictures?
I do. I don't have them. Oh, yeah. Okay. I guess if I didn't know I was going to tell this story. Okay. So I'll bring some of those pictures. I can show you some of the pictures that were taken that day that are not the funny ones. Here's one of them. And one of them was after Dee and Carolyn's picture were taken, Dee says, "We want you in a picture." And I was dressed like for Deacon. I was dressed for my serval. I was dressed like, and I said, "I'm not dressed for a picture." He says, "Well, go get another shirt on." And so I ran in there, got another shirt on. And I'm so glad they sat me down on a chair in front of them. And I'm so glad they did that because it didn't even occur to me to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But it was taken at the same time. And I cherish it, totally cherish it. So, yeah. We have lots of eyes. Let me see who's coming in from where. We have 2 comments too. Six from NDB Media and Kris from my Facebook page. If you are on my Facebook page, please come to that NDB Media thing that I showed there. I'm going to put it up here. Please come to this because then you can interact. You can send comments and then we can interact live. That would be fabulous. Going to look at the Cookie Sword is with us. Cookie
Yes.
Sword is with us pretty much all the time.
I love Cookie Sword.
Yes. I love Christmas. Who is I love Christmas?
Yay.
That's too funny. Who is I love Christmas? Please tell me who you are and where you're from. This is great. Awesome. So anyhow.
So, hey, Kris.
Yes.
While you're waiting to get those comments, because I know there's a delay.
Yes.
I just want to pick up on something that you had just mentioned that Dee said about not doing pictures because they don't have kids.
Right.
Well, I am a memory keeper.
Uh-huh.
I am a childless memory keeper.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to remind everyone out there that it doesn't matter if you don't have kids. Like, your story is so important to tell, and don't think that it's not simply because you don't have kids or someone to pass it on to. There are people in your life that absolutely are going to be interested in your story. So write it down, record it. Like Kris just said, get in the photos,
right.
Because that is such an important, we're naturally storytellers. If you think about, earliest caveman days and they were doing pictures on the walls,
Mm-hmm.
we are meant to tell stories. Kris is a master storyteller. And so be sure to tell your own story, and it doesn't matter if you have kids or not.
If I hadn't been keeping journals the whole time, when Terry Rio, who wrote Dee's biography From Sawdust to Stardust, she asked me a question I couldn't answer. She said, "How did you go from being a fan on the outermost reaches of fandom to being at his bedside when he passed away?" And it just threw me for a loop. I said, "I don't know the answer to that question. Dee would have had to answer that question." And she said, "No, Kris, you know the answer. You just have to connect the dots." And because I was a journalist, I was able to go back into my journals and find out how that happened, And it's amazing how many things I forgot about my interactions with them that when I got back into my journals, I remember. You would think as an actor, my favorite actor, I would have remembered every darn thing we ever said to each other, but not. You don't remember. I'll bet you 40 or 50% of it, I didn't even remember. It was like rediscovering what happened. Mm-hmm. So anybody who's alive should be keeping a journal.
Absolutely.
Because we are going to be one of the most photographed. We are among the first generations to have photos of us and our own voices telling our own stories. Up until then, it's been, other than people leaving journals and diaries, we didn't get to see faces or see personalities or whatever. We are going to be the most researched and scrutinized probably generations 1,000 years from now. Like, what were they like? How much different are we from them? And
and with that being said, though, if you think about social media, we're putting up the best aspects of our lives, and we're not necessarily sharing everything that is is the whole story. And so having journals and those primary source documents are so important. And like you said, going back to we forget, you know, it's just we have a lot going on. It's easy to forget things. And my scrapbooking mentor, Stacy Julian, she talks about our mind being like an attic, and we have all these boxes that have memories packed away. And if something triggers that memory, the box opens up, but we don't remember it until we have that triggering event. And that's what you were just talking about. Your journals were that triggering event for you. And then you're like, oh yeah, I remember that.
Right. Exactly. Yep. I have told people, everybody, always keep a journal, even if it's just a couple of lines, even if you forget for 6 months. When I first started out, I was doing it like every 6 months. And I was like, okay, well, what happened that I didn't write down? And I would then write it down. But if you make it a habit, you miss it if you don't do it. I mean, my blog is now my journals. You guys are into my life like nobody's business. But
even if nothing else, for people that don't like to write, keeping a gratitude journal of writing down the 3 things that you're grateful for that day, really being present in your life and thinking about those things that are important to you, that made an impact. And it kind of goes back to what Kris was saying earlier, finding those things that bring you joy and noticing those throughout the day. And if you start doing that, that is, you know, a form of memory keeping, but it also does so much for your mental health because you're focusing on gratitude instead of just all the things that are bad in life.
Miss Charlie's going to join me for a little.
Hey.
Charlie has to join. Her name's Charlie. Charlie Chaplin. Yes, Charlie Chaplin.
I love her.
Okay, so, I better get up here and see what's happening. I don't have any more comments, but I have viewers. So please tell me who you are, where you're from, and I know who that is. That's Leah. Isn't that Leah Cherison? And I'm not sure how I'm saying your name. She wrote the Sahaj series. Tuxedo Kitty. Ow, shoulder. Yep.
You okay?
I'm fine. She'll stop in a minute. I'm getting used to it. Yeah.
She just wants her cuddles.
Yeah, that's what she wants. She says, I'm sitting here and I'm not typing, which means Charlie time. The cats have to watch when I'm not walking, reading, or typing. And then it's like, oh, it's my turn. Anyhow, we got lots of eyes, and I think everybody's shy. Yeah, you go, what to watch with, baby. So, Hannah, did you want to ask me some of the questions? We had some questions popped up in case we had some lulls in conversation, because a lot of people are shy at first, and they don't know if they're going to feel comfortable doing this.
All right. We might have just answered this. I actually had a question about photos. So you've let everyone know what Dee's favorite photo was of himself. You know, you, him, and Deacon at Shambhala. What's your favorite picture of you and him?
My favorite of him, possibly the one I just showed, because it's got Dee and Carolyn too. Mm-hmm. But I have so many that I love. Here's one. That was up in Bellevue when he called me up on stage, and I went completely. I mean, he started saying these complimentary things about me, and I just, this person who's a wordsmith couldn't come up with a single word to say. I was just completely speechless. And here's another one. This is one of my favorites because of the way it happened. We were in Dee's backyard. We had just been up to Shambhala for Carolyn and Dee to meet Deacon, my cat, for the first time. And for those of you who don't know who Deacon is, this picture was taken that same day. We had Deacon is my serval son. I had him for like 17 years. And we had just been up to Shambhala, and he said, okay, well, now come on in the house and meet our turtle, Myrtle. who everybody knew about, but nobody had ever seen. So Myrtle's actually a desert tortoise. And toward the end, Sue Keenan was with me. She was Dee's fan club president. And she said, or Dee said, I don't remember who suggested it, but take some pictures. So Sue says, I don't know how to run your camera. And I said, that's okay. Just stand up here, just look, and I'll hold my finger up. And when it's in line, it's focused. And so she was doing that and doing that. And then I went, oh, what am I saying? Don't focus here, focus here. And I pointed at Dee, and he gave me this big grin for that. And Sue said, I didn't know if it was in focus or not, but I wanted that picture, the way he was looking at you. And boom, she got it. So that's one of my favorites, just because of the way it happened. It was, don't focus here, focus here. At first I had my finger right in front of my face. Focus here. So that's when that one happened.
I saw that picture online years ago saying, here we see DeForest Kelley and his wife.
Uh-huh. Me and
how wrong is that?
Somebody recently said, I really miss your dad.
Two, that's,
somebody said,
guy.
Yeah. I had somebody mention recently, I really miss your dad. And when Carl Urban wrote a note to me, he said, love you, love your dad. And I'm going, wait a minute, how are people getting this impression? Very strangely enough, Dee looked an awful lot like Dad. Mom looked an awful lot like Carolyn. I guess I look pretty much like a combination of the two because my mom and Dad resembled them. But no, anytime I see it, I say, no, I'm not related.
Mm-hmm. But I think that sometimes when we spend so much time with people that they become our adoptive family, and I'm sure that Dee and Carolyn felt of you as a daughter type. So at the time, and so
that's how
probably where that comes from.
I agree with that, because over time, strangely enough, before I met them very briefly in Wenatchee, Washington, just really briefly at a parade one time. And then I wrote that article about them called The Real McCoy, which they had published for me. And then years passed, and all during these intervening years, I kept having this dream about being plopped down in a Southern California neighborhood with a message from with a message from Dee to give to Carolyn. And I didn't know what their house looked like in my dream. I did not know. And I didn't know at that time either. So in this dream, I'm walking around looking over fences, looking for Myrtle the turtle. Because I knew what Myrtle the turtle looked like. I'd seen Myrtle in the picture. And then this dream segued into where I would find Myrtle, but no Dee and Carolyn, and it just kept going and kept going. And then it evolved to a place where we were sitting in a living room acting very much just like family. I mean, just talking about the most mundane, whatever things. And I kept wondering, why do I keep having these dreams about these people? I mean, I was impressed by them, yes, but I've been impressed by a lot of people in my life, and I don't have these dreams. Well, I think sometimes fate just arranges for things to happen. And it just evolved. And at the 20th anniversary of Star Trek, he was going to be in Spokane, and he had launched my writing career. And I went over there and met him again. And he said, what happened? We always wonder Carolyn said, we always wonder what happened to the little girl who wrote so well. Mm-hmm. Stay in touch. They gave me their address, and I became a pen pal for like 2 years. And then they said, why don't you move down to Hollywood? And I'm like, I'm there, I get my foot in the door in Hollywood. And it was like they adopted me when I was looking for a home for Deacon. Dee literally went house to house knocking on doors for me to try to, maybe if I ask, it'll be okay, and I mean, just amazing things. You have to read the book to find out all the wonderful things that happened, because if I had dared imagine or dream anything that outrageous could happen, I would have probably had myself submitted for counseling. That just does not happen, and it did happen. And I'm just thrilled to pieces. And I really didn't recognize how strong the bond was from their end. I mean, he was my mentor. I really, I thought the world of them, but I didn't know really what I thought they were being very kind to a fan. That's what I thought until he fell ill and he says, can you come help? And people don't invite you in to die with them unless they trust you implicitly, And it was at that point I began to get the the picture that, yeah, they really did trust me implicitly. And then when Terry was writing her book about Dee, From Stardust to Stardust, she said, well, you were with him the last 3 months of his life in the hospital. I need to interview you too. And that's when she asked me the question I couldn't answer. How did you go from becoming a fan? The reason I wrote the book is because I needed to find out the answer to that question. That's why I wrote it, because I didn't know. And I thought, that's a tragedy that I don't know. Anyhow, and then we were sitting at a restaurant after she'd interviewed all of these people to do his book. And she said to me what you said to me. And the only reason I didn't cry this time is because the question had always been posed to me. She said, you realized you were the daughter they never had. And I'm in a restaurant and I start to cry. And I said, don't say that. And she said, why not? And I said, because if that's true, I didn't do enough for them. And she said, Kris, you did absolutely everything they asked of you, didn't you? And I said, yeah. She said, that's all they would ever have accepted. And I'm like, just keep breathing, because that was huge to me. And I've since come to accept it, but up until then, it was like, that's impossible. That can't be. Just can't be. So, okay, we have some comments. Let's see what. Oh, we have some follow-up. Like Princess Leia, and my middle name is Hannah. Whoa. Oh, genuine tricky. Okay, let's see. Is that the con where he looked at the audience and said, Kris would know, where's Kris? No, that wasn't. That was a later one. After I moved down to Hollywood, I ended up going to lots and lots of conventions that he was at. I was only at 2 conventions before I moved down there. And after I moved down there, it was like they practically adopted me. It was just incredible. And he would almost always bring me up during his appearances if I was in the audience. And, he'd say, well, Kris knows, she knows about the tree in our backyard. And I'm like, oh, then people would come up afterwards and go, you really know him. And I go, yeah, I know a tree in his backyard too. But the scary thing about this is I got a little bit of feeling of what it's like to be a celebrity or a mini celebrity, because I went to a convention one time and I was going to talk about Dee ahead of time. I had written my first book about Dee. And I was sitting I went to the auditorium ahead of time to familiarize myself because I want to feel comfortable when I walk into a place. And it was pretty empty. So I just sat down like in the middle of the bleachers and in the middle of the seats. And I looked around at one point and there was this gal over about 20 feet over and a couple of rows behind me over there. And she was looking at me like this little puppy dog, and I thought, what? And I thought maybe somebody had walked in, beyond me on the other side, maybe Brent Spiner or somebody had walked into the room that she was looking at like that for. When I realized she was looking at me like that, I went, oh my gosh. And then I realized she had my book in her lap. And I immediately said, come on over, because I didn't like Dee. You want to immediately let people know we put our pants on one leg at a time. I mean, do not, please don't think of me that way. I don't want to be a celebrity. I want to be a friend maybe, but it's really, really hard. You get put on a pedestal. You can get put on a pedestal, and it's so hard to get through that. I had Dee on a pedestal for a while, and then I found they just kept they kept showing me that that's not correct. We're just people, and the more you realize that people are people. One of the reasons I was able to work in Hollywood was because I realized actors and producers and directors are people. They are doing what they love. They are turned on. They are completely passionate about what they do, but they're just people. And if you can't, when you're working in Hollywood, if you can't treat people like people, you won't last long. I mean, you should look like another working person just like that. You shouldn't go to lunch to see who's in the cafeteria, you know, that kind of stuff. So anyhow, Sasha, so I click on these things. I'm having a hard time with this back end stuff. I was there when he said it, and I wondered who Kris would. Do you remember which convention it was that you were at? Because I don't remember. I went to so many of them. I do remember him saying it, but I don't remember which one it was at or why he said it. And then that's really respectable that all of you just consider yourself people instead of someone higher. What? Yeah. When I was in Hollywood also, there was a custodian there who was from Mexico, and I was learning Spanish. I was trying to reacquaint myself with Spanish because I had learned it 30 years before in high school. And he was, of course, conversant in English, but not fluent, yet fluent. And we would meet like for lunch, and we would laugh with each other over the facts that we were, murdering that. It's okay when you're both murdering it and you're both each other, But the funny thing about it was, he says, you get your chances wrong sometime, and you get, maybe some of the words wrong sometimes, but I know exactly what you're saying, and that's all that matters, and that helped me quickly get over the fact, don't be self-conscious, keep trying and keep doing it until you get better at it. Don't be shy or scared about that. So I've always considered everybody equal. I guess I was raised that way. I treat everybody as if they could be the president or the custodian. And I don't consider the custodian any less important than the president. One has more power. The other one's keeping us alive. Hello.
Right. Well, and that's the key, isn't it? It's like, we need everyone. We need everyone's skills, and everyone makes such a difference. And,
absolutely,
the people who think that they're high and mighty, it's like, no, because honestly, if actors went away, we'd still find ways to tell stories. We'd still find ways to entertain ourselves, and the world would keep moving. If the people who clean up after us went away, there would be some serious problems.
We had up here, Amy, as you know, we had a 10 or 12 days where the garbage collection couldn't come by, and people are losing their minds. It's like, hello, I expect you to come by every week and pick this up, because what are we going to do with this if you don't do this? Because if they don't pick it up, pretty soon there's disease, so these are important positions, and I don't like it when people treat anybody with anything but absolute respect.
No, and perhaps people should consider how much garbage they're actually generating and think about that before they start complaining about, snowstorms.
Right. So, Hannah, how you doing?
I'm doing all right. Yeah.
Have we tripped any synapses here for you?
I'm sorry?
Have we tripped any synapses for you? Brought up any thoughts that you want to share?
Well, let's see. Leia here, who said that their middle name is Hannah. They said that, and I thought of this one occurrence that happened to me from elementary school. My sister is watching this, so I'm pretty sure she knows where this is going. I was like 10, and some kid came up to me, wanted to be friends, and they just went, "Hi, I'm Hannah." And I went, "Oh, cool, I'm Hannah too." And she started getting really defensive for some reason. She was like, well, you can spell my name the same forwards and back. I'm just, yeah, you can do that with mine too. Well, I have a dog. I'm like, I do too. And then she just, and I never saw her again. I don't know what her problem was.
You can't be Hannah. I'm Hannah.
Yeah. Thank you, Leia, for helping me remember that. That's awesome.
That trip to synapse with me too, because for some reason I do a pretty good job of remembering people's names usually, but if it's Kris, I forget it. Like, you can't be Kris. I'm Kris. I don't.
That's so weird, because I can't remember names for the life of me. But I can remember birthdays. Very easily. I remember in one of your books, you know, Dee said to you, your birthday's in March? And you're like, yeah. And he's like, I'll remember that. And I remember just reading it, you know, wherever it is. I'm just like, me too.
Yeah.
Whether I want to or not.
Right. That's it. That's fascinating. Well, we have a lot of eyes, but no comments at the moment. So I guess we can just riff about what anybody wants to talk. Did you have another question about D, or did you, Amy, or?
No, but did you want to do your joy segment?
Yes, let's do a joy segment.
Yeah.
Do you have a joy to share?
Yeah, so I just attended the Expand Your Reach online conference. It was an incredible conference, and the one of the speakers was named, or his business, or I guess he's known as Mr. Thank You. Have you heard of him before?
Oh,
Okay. So I'm trying to I know where my notes are. I took so many notes.
yeah.
Anyway, one of the things that he was talking about is he did this year-long challenge to himself to write 5 thank you cards to people every day for a year.
Wow.
Oh, that's a lot.
That is a lot.
But it kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier with this whole idea of looking at life through the lens of gratitude.
Correct.
And that's what he found, was that he was, finding people for whom he could be grateful and letting them know about that. And so a couple things that like always bring me joy, because people don't write letters. They don't send cards that often. And I am a card maker. And on Mondays, I do my Mail at Monday show and I go mail a card. And when I receive a card in the mail, it brings me so much joy from the moment of opening up that mailbox and seeing that there's something in there that's not a bill and that's not junk mail. I'm like, oh, and I'm excited all the way home, walking home. And then I get into the house and I get to open it up and read what the person said. And that is such a moment of joy. And then I get to put it on my mantle or in my office and look at it. And every time I see it, it brings me joy. So I encourage everybody to either write written letters or send cards. It brings you joy sending, and it brings the other person a lot of joy receiving.
Do you have a podcast or anything like that you'd like to talk about so that people can? You said you do something every Monday.
I do. So on my Mail at Monday show is on my Facebook page, which I kind of think my Facebook page is still under my old name, Studio Scrapping.
Okay.
With Amy Yulin, but I've changed it to the Creativity Playground. So I think if you just search for that, but you can also find me on Instagram at the Creativity Playground. So that's for people who are interested in paper crafts, card making, creative play as a form of mental health. And if you're just interested in Star Trek, on Instagram at Amy Yulin, I'm sharing my Star Trek fandom photos.
All right. That's awesome. I'm going to pop up some questions. We got some.
Oh, yeah. Lots of questions now.
Joy. Today is Sahaj's birthday. Actually, the first anniversary of his actual birthday party. Fans from New York, New Jersey, Maryland, Massachusetts all came together at my house for a mini con. People just slept on the floor. That sounds like so much fun.
So cool.
Yeah. I love Christmas. I like the idea of those thank you letters. And also great for people with lower self-esteem. Yeah, because you find a lot of people, my God, you can make their day, you can make their month, just letting them know they're there and that you value them. Snail mail goes to the logical side of the brain. Email goes to the creative side. And also email almost never gets Saved. I mean, if it gets saved, it's almost never reviewed. Whereas if you get mail, if you get a card, I mean, I have cards that I have saved for years just because of not the card itself, but what was expressed in the little notation with the card. Those are precious, precious memories. And they're also ways to remind us that every time we have an interaction with somebody, something happens. Something good or something bad happens. And it's really up to us to decide what that is going to be. And the more of us that say, I want this to end positively, the better the world gets. So I think Hannah has an idea. I see things brewing in her brain there.
I was just thinking, I have a letter that I'm going to be saving for the rest of my life. When I graduated college, the night before, my dad had written me a letter, and I think I got it at the graduation party, and it's several pages long, and it's just incredibly touching. And the one thing that I really think of for some reason is he works at a school, and he talks about how he would see these little painted little like footprints going into the school or something. And he would be looking at that when I was 5 years old, and he's like, I can't believe she's starting kindergarten.
Right.
And now here I am graduating college. And I don't know why, but that just really sticks with me.
When I was going through my mom and dad's personal effects after they passed away, I found a letter I had written them as a teenager, because teenagers have a lot of angst and we have a lot of things, and I didn't necessarily have a generation gap, but I had some things going on in my family. My dad was an alcoholic, and he was like a whirling dervish, this Tasmanian devil type guy. And I loved him dearly, but he had issues. And I was a pretty conflicted. First of all, I was trans and didn't know what that was at the time. I was conflicted, and I was unhappy that he was, getting drunk and doing stuff, But at one point, I realized in my teenage years that I was giving them a lot of grief and not giving them any compliments or thank yous or anything like that. And I sat down and I actually wrote them a letter. I said, I know we've had a lot of problems, and and I've caused at least half of them, but I want you to know how incredibly how much I love you and how much I know you've done for me and the whole thing. Well, they kept that thing. I found it in their personal effects afterwards, and it was like, wow, and I just teared up over it to think that maybe they had to reread that letter 12 times every time I gave them grief, but to remind themselves, this is a part of growing up. This is what happens. We have to get through this together. And I think personal letters are incredibly crucial. If you haven't written one and you still have a parent, please do it.
That was this Christmas, when you get to, for those of us of a certain age, when you get to be an adult, you don't really need things anymore. So we always struggle at Christmas. What are we going to get the adults? And this year, our gift to each other was the gift of words. So we wrote each other letters, and that was our gift. And it was so funny because my mom typed her letter and gave the same letter to both me and my sister. Like, Mom, the whole point was to handwrite a letter. And she was like, but I want to say the same thing to both of you. And we're like, okay, thank you. But it was really a sweet letter. So I love it anyway. I would have preferred her handwriting, but that's okay.
Right.
It's the thought that counts.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, and that before we move on, because I know there's some comments that you want to get to, but that would be another thing that I would encourage everyone to do. Just like Kris said, write a letter and write it by hand, because your handwriting is such a part of your personality. And even though you may not like it, because I hear scrapbookers say that all the time, it's like, oh, I hate my handwriting. but that's part of you. And when we look back at old photo albums, like when I look back at my grandma's writing or my mom's writing, it is so interesting to me. And so think about that when you're writing your letter. Actually write it, even though it's easier to type it.
I'd have a hard time with that these days because I have Dupuytren's contracture and I have this like funky hand that's kind of, you know, in a C.
Yeah.
And
that's true. If you have like a disability or something and can't write, obviously just getting the words out however you can, whether that's you know, speech translation or whatever.
And it breaks my heart because I love my penmanship. I taught myself to write well, you know, and so it's like, it isn't that I can't, it's just that it gets, talk about writer's cramp. I can't do much of it before it starts to go really bad, really bad south.
That's too bad.
You know, there are programs on computers that will scan your handwriting and turn it into a font.
Ah, okay. I was just going to put up I just this day put up a picture of Carolyn's handwriting. I didn't know we were coming to this, but where is it? Excuse me while I just take a look.
Okay. Well, and I love that comment about having letters from Dee and Leonard that you'll save. Yeah. That's what I do. I have I'm trying to think. I don't think I have it close by, but I have a Star Trek scrapbook. Mm-hmm. So it's got all my scrapbook layouts, and whenever I have received letters back from an actor, I always keep those and put them in my scrapbook as well.
Yeah. Well, I can't find it. I must have thought I did it and didn't do it, or put it somewhere where I can't see it or something. Doggone it. Because I wanted you to see her handwriting. So you've seen Dee's. It's kind of frilly. Mm-hmm. I'm going to come down here. Cookie sword. I know I have saved little cards I got as a kid from Santa. I think whoever delivers mail made it when I sent a letter. You can tell how much work went into it, and I always look through them every Christmas. Oh,
I love that.
Aww. I have a flyer that the great Leonard Nimoy signed. I'm saving it for the rest of my life. You betcha. And then somebody just mentioned something Amy already answered. Sometimes you can't write, arthritis and that. That's okay. Mm-hmm. And if you don't want to write, pick up an audio tape or video, audio tape it. You don't want to read my handwriting.
A while ago, John Bart 101 had a question.
Pardon?
A while ago, John Bart 101 had a question. It says, I have a question about Dee. Did he ever suffer from being thrown into the spotlight of being famous because of Star Trek?
Actually had a pretty good career going before Star Trek as a bad guy, and he'd been in motion pictures and television since 1945 thereabout. So Star Trek was the first series that really made him, in quotes, a household name. But many of us who started watching Star Trek recognized him right away, way before the others became very well known because we had seen him before in other things. So, but it did give him the chance to become, in quotes, a household name, and probably, obviously, it also made his career something that is going to last. It's iconic. His Dr. McCoy is iconic. So,
was he ever, like, because he did so many Westerns and things prior to Star Trek, did he ever miss doing that kind of?
He loved being a cowboy. Yeah. He grew up as the son of a Baptist minister, and his dad wanted him to be a preacher because he had such a good heart. Mm-hmm. Dee wanted to be a cowboy when he was a little boy, and his uncle doctor wanted him to be a doctor. And Dee said, luckily for me, I got to be a cowboy and a doctor. Yeah. And most of the things that he talked about, though, when he was on stage was about his Westerns career. He was a cowboy at heart. He really was a cowboy. He wanted to be a cowboy. And almost all of the anecdotes he told were things about, misdrawing a gun or falling off a horse or something, funny things Hoss Cartwright did to him when they were filming Bonanza and stuff like that. I mean, all of his, I think most fondest. And the other thing he liked better about that than Star Trek is almost all of the Star Treks were filmed, not all, but an awful lot of them are filmed on the set in a studio. And when you do a Western, you go to Arizona and you go to Vasquez Rocks and you go to Northern California and you go to all of these locales. I think they only got away from that with Star Trek a few times. They made a few Star Trek episodes up at Vasquez Rocks. They made some of the motion pictures up at Vasquez Rocks, where Spock is going into the Kolinar thing. I think that was up at Vasquez Rocks. But he said there really wasn't very much location shooting, and he missed location shooting an awful lot. Yes, Dan Blocker was Haas, and Dan Blocker and Dee were often giving each other. There was this one scene where Dee had killed a bunch of Indians. He had poisoned a bunch of Indians, and Dan Blocker is like accosting him for doing that, killing women and children. And during this one scene, they're like head to head, and Dan Blocker, had that big 10-gallon hat that he kept on his head. And Don McDougall, Dee said Don McDougall, the director, never gave him for this. Not Dee, but Haas, Dan Blocker. He said, unbeknownst to Don, Dan had put a transistor radio underneath his hat, and they'd say, okay, and they'd get underneath the microphone, and he'd go, just a minute, I'm getting interference. They'd step out of the thing, and he goes, okay, the interference is gone. Come on back under. And he went back under, and interference, we can't do this. That kind of stuff. And he said he lost his mind. Dan Blocker would do silly stuff like that. So, yeah. There was a lot of fun. There's one on there that's kind of a little on the raunchy side, so I don't know if I better mention that one, but he wanted to be a doctor, but he couldn't afford it. That's true. But he came the doctor to the whole galaxy. Who can beat that? Absolutely. He said he was in the actual magazine, the American Medical Association. They called him the most famous doctor in the galaxy in that magazine. So that is true. He did want to be a doctor, but he just couldn't afford it. He was a Depression era boy. Oh, I got to show you a cute picture of him. Just about the only picture that survives him as a child, because their house burned down at one point, is there.
Oh.
Aviator D. He got to go up in a plane when he was a little boy, and he had that aviator thingy going. You can tell that's D. Such a cutie patootie. Yeah. And there was another one that was taken. I don't have it up, but in the Baptist church, they always take pictures of you when you're a teenager, and there's another one like that. But that, I believe, is in Terry's book, From Sawdust to Stardust, if you want to go and take a look and see that. And Terry's book, I highly recommend Terry's book. Oh, maybe I ought to put my book up.
Mm-hmm.
So you could maybe get, if you want to, okay, let's see here. Oop-de-doo-doo. Here's the cover of my book. I need to now put John Bart away so you can see it. Okay. Oh, he saw the picture of the Aviator D before. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's my book, DeForest Kelley Up Close and Personal, A Harvest of Memories from the Fan Who Knew Him Best. And you can get that at Amazon. You can read excerpts from it at yellowballoonpublications.com. And now I got to go find it and take it off.
I have the version with the other cover.
With the other cover? Yeah. Yep. That one's got a whole lot toward the end. That one came out not long after he had passed away.
Mm-hmm.
My big concern during that time was people were worrying, did he suffer horribly, as he died with cancer? And so an awful lot of that first book, the tail end of that book, is awful lot about me being in the hospital with him to make sure people knew he was comfortable, he was still funny, he was still everything DeForest Kelley was, and that he did okay, that he had good support, pain management, he had everything he needed to have what we'll call a good death, Mm-hmm. My big concern as I was writing the book was, if I was a fan, what would I want to know about Dee, especially toward the end of his life with cancer? I wanted to know. So when I did the update to it, I took an awful lot of that out because people by then knew that they had heard it, and I was able to use redeem the space that was there and put like 55 additional anecdotes, funny anecdotes that and pictures. Because one of the feedback I got was, "Oh, that couldn't have happened. She's delusional. None of that happened. She made all of that up." And so my second book, I had a lot of documentation in the middle. I had photos. I had, when I said something happened, it happened.
Yeah. Why would people? I don't get people. Why would they even say that? I don't understand.
I was pretty thrown back by it. I'm like, okay. I know books have been written where they've been absolute bogus books. And I know that it's a heartbreak, but mine was not one of them. I mean, obviously I didn't even know how that book was going to come out until I went back into all my journal and figured out how that all happened. So, I mean, I had documentation from basically the days they happened all the way through it. So, yeah. Let's see, what do we got? We've got, whoopsie, 5 people from MD Media, 2 people still on my Facebook page. If you're on my Facebook page, I wish you would come to the Twitch thing so we could have some comments. I'm going to put that up here again. I think that's under banners. If you come to this, you can actually interact with us. For those of you who are interested in my books, you can go to my Author Central page at Amazon, and there's the URL for that. But if you go to yellowballoonpublications.com, you can also click on each of the books and get a little bit of a thumbnail about what each of them are about.
Okay, so I'm on your Facebook page, and we had Jane from England was here, but had to leave to go fix dinner.
Oh,
yes. And then we have Janet asking, do you know if Myrtle is still alive?
I don't know if Myrtle is still alive, but the lady who took her has my contact information. And if she ever needed a home before this lady passed, her family knew that if they could no longer take care of the turtle, they were supposed to get in touch with me and let me know so I could rehome it. And I've never heard from any of them, even though they have my contact. So either Myrtle has passed away, they didn't tell me, or she's still alive and somebody's taking care of her, but I haven't heard. She was at least 80 years old. Dee and Carolyn used to joke, we like to have something around here older than we are. So she'd have to be 130, 135 years old now. And desert tortoises live a long time. It's possible, but I just haven't heard. I don't have any thank you for that, Amy.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, it looks like we're in the Ask Me Anything section.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are. And we've been here an hour.
Yeah.
Are we still having fun? Should we? We've got some more comments coming in here. Let's see. I'm scrolling down to see if I've missed anything.
You want me to read off some questions?
Sure.
Okay, so Momo, Fast Start Trek Junkie says, was Dee able to get parts as bad guys or in Westerns after his iconic portrayal of Dr. McCoy?
He had 2 opportunities after McCoy, but unfortunately he was under contract and they conflicted with additional Star Treks they were making. He was supposed to be in the Missouri Breaks, and he also wanted to be in the series Lonesome Dove. And they were considering him for that, but he had conflicting, he was under contract as McCoy and he couldn't do them. And he said he really, really missed that because bad guys really are the best people, especially, if you're a good guy, it's really fun to be a bad guy. And he could really chew up the scenery when he was a bad guy. He was also extremely funny. He did a play back in Lubbock, Texas called Beginner's Luck. And the producer of that show, Phil Whalen, said he had the comic timing of Jack Benny. He was absolutely spot on and hysterical. And of course, he brought some of that to Star Trek. One of the reasons he picked Star Trek, was he picked Dr. McCoy of the 3 roles, was because he sensed that there would be humor there. And you saw snippets of that happening all throughout the series. But he was a really funny guy. In person, he was really funny. He had a dry sense of humor, but he was sassy and funny. He was great. This has really been fun. Great first show. Only I couldn't post until I joined Twitch. Got to run. Okay. Thank you. Hope to see you in 2 weeks. We're doing this again in 2 weeks at the same time, every other Saturday. For Star Trek Generations, they wanted to be D, but he liked the way Star Trek 6 ended. When Scotty said Jim to Kirk, that was supposed to be D. Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, he decided to go out with 6 instead of to do anything else. But yeah, he really missed doing the bad. He did one other thing. He did a pilot for Warner Brothers, which I've tried to find. When I was at Warner Brothers, I tried to find the reel and they couldn't find it for me. The librarian looked for weeks and couldn't find it. But it was a pilot based on the TV Western movie Cowboys with John Wayne. And he played a bad guy in that. And I was trying to find that. Anyhow, that happened in 72. So that was the only other cowboy role he did after Star Trek, as far as I know. And we got John Bart saying, I'm going to get. Okay. The way this back end works, every time I click on something, it seems like it jumps away and I'm afraid to click on it. Dee was supposed to be on Star Trek Voyager, but unfortunately he was sick and the studio wouldn't let him do it. Too bad it never happened. I didn't know about that. What year was Star Trek Voyager? I think that's probably right. That's about the time he fell ill. Do you know how much Star Trek he actually watched after the original series? He didn't watch a lot of it after the original series. And he said, it's just so weird. It was just so weird for him to watch it because he said it was like, kind of like I don't know. He loved all of the actors and he appeared at conventions with them and had a great time with them. But he said, it's like, he said, it's hard to explain, but it's like, that's something we did, and he just couldn't, The other thing was he wasn't a huge sci-fi fan. That wasn't his genre of the types of themes that he enjoyed. But he said he would have given his left arm absolutely to have been in, what's the series? Quantum Leap. Because as an actor, to be able to be so many different characters, he said, I would have given my left arm for that if I was young enough to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Cookie's World just mentioned Voyager, and so did John Bart, Voyager 1995 to 2001.
Yeah, well, if it was early in Voyager, he would not have been sick at that time. He was diagnosed, I didn't know it because he didn't tell me, because my mom was dying of brain cancer at the time and he didn't want me to be torn. But he was diagnosed, he passed away in 1999, so he was diagnosed in middle of like 1996 or 7. And yeah, and he was frail. I mean, up until he was diagnosed, obviously something was going on because he was skinny as a rail, in the last start in 6.
Yeah.
They had to buffer him a little bit to make him look like he was all there. So his costumes from there are tiny, just absolutely tiny. And you're right. Yep. I'm going to click on this, and there we go. He did a voiceover for one of the Brave Little Toasters movie. Yes, he did. The first one, he was the voice of, was it called The Voyager?
Something like Mars robot or something.
Yeah. He was the voice. That was the last thing he did as far as anything professional. That was 1991.
On YouTube, they have a behind the scenes thing of that. Yeah, they make a big deal out of him. Like before they show him doing the voiceover, you see all the characters. They're like, "Look, it's someone famous." I can't believe it's it cuts to him. Forrest Kelly.
Can you find that? Can you find that and share that with us at some point? Not necessarily, but all right. We got lots of eyes. I guess everybody's shy. So we've been an hour. I don't know. Should we shut her down, or did you want to ask another question, or Hannah, did you want to ask anything else, or shall we call it a day?
Sure. This one I'm kind of curious about. We were just talking about how, months ago you had on your blog a thing for people to ask a lot of questions.
Yes.
Yeah, I do remember. I remember asking what you think Dee and Carolyn would think of today, and you said that they didn't. That you don't think they would have liked it with all the drama and chaos going on. But what's something that you think they would have liked?
They were such gentlemen and gentle ladies that this rude, butting of heads that has come since 2001. Maybe it started in 2001, where you're either a patriot or you're not, and if you're not for the war, then you're not, whatever. I don't know when it happened or when it started, but this is an entirely different world than the one they were in. Even though they were the World War II generation, they had been places and they had seen awful. They were both liberal in, they were not racist, they were not sexist, they were not misogynists. And I think they would be very, very, I'm glad they're not here to see it. What would they like? I think they would like the fact that people are more transparent in a good way now. Also, they're transparent in a bad way, but they're also transparent in a good way, because Dee and Carolyn were very accepting and loving and nurturing, and they knew a lot of people were hiding shames or secrets. Like for me, when they were alive, I didn't even know the term transgender existed. I just knew that I didn't feel like most girls felt, that I thought I was the only one until I really learned what transgender was.
I found the video and put the link in the private chat. Okay. I don't know what time he comes on though.
Okay. Did he ever like going to conventions? Because he was really shy. He loved conventions. He said he had to get out of the valley to be thought of as a start, because everybody in the valley, just treated him like a regular guy, which is good. That's really very good. He liked that, but he said once in a while you like to go out and meet people who are, kind of crazy about you and who you are crazy about. He loved conventions. There were times, I think, as he started to feel ill, where it became more trouble than it was worth. But as long as he could do it, he did it. He loved them. He loved interacting with the fans. You put that in a private chat, so I'm going to copy it over to here and put it in a banner. And this is the link to the DeForest Kelly Brave Little Toaster Goes to Mars, right?
Yeah, it's behind the scenes kind of documentary thing.
Well, I'm going to leave that up for a minute, because that's going to take a minute for somebody to write down.
Are you able to put that in the chat so people can just copy and paste it?
I can't. I don't have an option to put anything in the chat.
Can. I don't think. I tried doing that earlier, to see if viewers could copy and paste it.
Mm-hmm. Might be easier to just Hannah, what was it called again?
Brave Little Toaster Goes to Mars. The actual video itself is called The Making of the Brave Little Toaster.
Yeah, it might be easier for people to go to YouTube and do a search.
Okay, I also have a couple more banners that I put up here, especially because I want to be sure and mention something. On December 18th of this past year, it was the 30th anniversary of Dee's star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. And I wanted to give you this link to my blog post, because I put in an excerpt from my book about what that day was like, because I was there when I went to the star ceremony reception at Paramount afterwards, and to his fan club reception after that. And I wanted you to be able to get in on the action and really experience what that was like. And my other thing to remind you is Dee's 102nd birthday is this coming Thursday, January 20th. And also, since we're all animal lovers, I want to bring up the fact that 2022 without Betty White just doesn't seem right. I have never had a year in my life before without Betty White in it. She has been an iconic, wonderful person since I was a tiny wee tot. And she's a huge animal lover. And Lisa and I are going to go see a Fathom special event on Monday. It was supposed to be her 100th birthday celebration. As it turns out, it's probably going to be more of a memorial service. We'll have to take hankies instead of laugh. But I'm sure we'll laugh too.
Oh, you'll laugh too.
I'm sure they recorded it while she was alive. And I hope it will be wonderful. So
I saw something on Tumblr last night. Someone's looking at it as 2021 did not take Betty White away from us, but Betty White took 2020 away from us. She was like, you know what? You caused enough pain and suffering. I'm taking you out.
Yes. You know, Betty White is one of the few people who can live to 100 and we can still say we didn't get enough. We didn't get enough.
Someone else pointed out that she lived through so many leap years that she technically was 100.
Absolutely. She lived through more 24 leap years, so she lived long enough to qualify as a 100-year-old. Yep, that's awesome. Anything that makes me feel, and I know she said she couldn't wait to see her husband, Alan Ludden, again. So she said the last word she was ever going to say, if she was conscious when she went, was Alan. And it happened. So but I met her just very, very briefly. And that's why I put this up, because that's my brief reminiscence of meeting Betty White. I went to an Actors and Others for Animals benefit, and she was there, and we spent a few minutes visiting. But she was a wonderful, wonderful lady. Okay, I've got 3 more comments. John says he copied the link. Okay, remember when he did live chat about the star and we watched the ceremony? You can watch the star ceremony on YouTube. Yes, you can. Dee's star ceremony. And I loved Betty on Match Game. She was on so many game shows when I was a teenager. I mean, and she was always so Betty. Like Dee, Betty was Betty. And she didn't put any airs. So she was just really comfortable to be around, as was Dee. So. All right. I think
we have one more comment. Mom of a Star Trek junkie, who I just got a text, is actually my mom. Hi, Mom. We need more gentlemen and gentle ladies. We need to get back to that kindness.
Absolutely.
100%.
100%. 1000%.
And we can circle back around to the beginning and saying one way we can get back to the kindness is send handwritten cards and letters.
Absolutely. Yep. And keep gratitude journals to remind yourself of the many, many blessings that we have.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you, Amy, for joining us. I hope you will do it again. It's when you can. I mean, you're about to retire. You're going to find out yourself way more busy after you retire for a while than before you retired.
Yes, absolutely.
I can't always do this, but whenever you can and whenever you are, of a mind to do that, please do. You've been such a plus, such a positive, such a wonderful addition that would be wonderful.
Thank you. Well, thank you for inviting me.
Hannah's she stays stalwart every week. She's wonderful. We're going to keep you. We're going to tie you to it. You can't get away. Thank you very, very much.
She's holding me hostage. Please help.
I'm holding her hostage. Yes, send money. Thank you. And
I'm about to get student loans back, so please send money.
Yes, there you go. We're taking donations for Hannah. Absolutely. Okay. I want to thank everybody who came and did this. John Bart, I'm going to go right up the line. Cookie Sword has been with us all the time. Sahaj Mama of a Star Trek junkie, I know who you are.
Don't forget, I love Christmas.
I just said I love Christmas. Is that everybody? Almost everybody who commented. Yeah. All right. Thank you. We will hang up now with the rest of the world, and I'll talk to you for just a couple of minutes, Amy and Hannah. Okay.
Okay.
Thanks. 2 weeks from today, again at 10:30, we're going to do this again. So thanks a lot. Bye-bye.